Hello and welcome to the Absolute Gamecast. As mentioned in a previous video, out of all of the FNAF fan games released over the years, many tend to be released and forgotten. But every once in a while, fan games might get remade by one developer or another. Such is the case with the topic of this discussion, Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese, a classic FNAF fan game that obviously features the band from the real-life Chuck E. Cheese restaurants who are now trying to kill you. I've been interested in making a comparison video between the original game and the remake for a while now, and it's finally time to do it. But before I start this video, if you haven't played either of these games, I recommend checking them out first if you haven't, and with all that being said, let's get into the first game of the video. Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese Classic was released back in 2015 by developer Leon. Beginning with the story and design, this game takes place in a fictional Chuck E. Cheese location with you playing as the night guard, with you having to defend yourself from the animatronics because FNAF. You also receive vague phone calls which are pretty similar to the calls from FNAF 1 and 2. Other than that, the game doesn't feature much of a story. At first I wished there was more story since it feels pretty basic, but in retrospect I feel like the limited story is fairly understandable since even the early FNAF games from that time didn't have a ton of story to them. The graphics are also pretty good, with the cameras being the main highlight. The character designs might be pretty basic, mostly just putting scary eyes on the real animatronics, but I do find a few of the renders to be pretty creepy, like when they show up in the hallway in front of you. Moving on to the gameplay, I feel like the gameplay is decent. It feels similar to FNAF 2, with one gate ahead, one vent to your side, and a closet to your other side that you have to watch occasionally. I like the fact that with the gate you have to hold it down to slam the door in their face instead of just pressing a button, which is a pretty unique spin on the door mechanic that while I like, there is still a power system, so you can't keep it closed for too long since it drains power, and the power drains fast in this game, so you have to be pretty careful while using it. You also have a cover on your vent next to you that also drains power fast, but luckily there is a sound effect so you do know when the best time to close it comes, and usually Helen leaves pretty fast. The one thing I had trouble with in the gameplay department was the closet. Inside the closet is old Chucky, who needs you to watch him constantly, and you're given little warning when he moves. He can't be driven off, so you can only slow him down, and if you leave him for too long, he can quickly fall out of the closet, disable your power, and lead you to a helpless death. Another aspect of the gameplay I struggled with was the game's reaction times. It could be my fault, but there were plenty of times where I was killed seconds after a threat showed up, giving me almost no time to react. I don't want to hold the game accountable yet without knowing if it was my problem first, though. I also wish there was more instruction in the phone calls, since there were a few mechanics I was left to figure out by myself, and some of them had some trial and error to them. Overall, as a creative and a game developer, I can see what the game was going for, and I don't want to be harsh on this game out of respect to the developer. I don't think the game deserves any hate, and regardless of all the struggles I had, I would still recommend you to play the game if you're feeling nostalgic or want to experience the history of FNAF fan games, but if you do, expect it to be a bit of a challenge when you first start. Let's move on to the next game. Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese Rebooted was released in 2021, co-developed by the Radiance team who remade Five Nights at Treasure Island, and the developer of the original game, Leon. In this game, a Chuck E. Cheese employee named Fred agrees to fill in for a co-worker on the night shift, only to learn that the animatronics the company plans on replacing are malfunctioning and now haunting you, because FNAF. Once you complete each night, you're also given pre-night mini-games, which, if you win, you drop 2 hours off the next night, which can help you finish nights faster. One of my favorite aspects of the game is the fact that most of the animatronics start right in front of you, behind windows, which can help build tension even in your one safe place. The building itself, while small, is also very well designed in the cameras and the office, and the character models are also well done. Some look cool, some look creepy, and some look disturbing. The gameplay of the game has similar mechanics to the original, but they've been drastically overhauled. You can turn around to look at the door, which has a gate like the original. You pull a lever and the gate closes until you let go. The cameras, which were also in the first game but are more important now since old Chucky is there, but his AI has been reworked so he's far easier to deal with. There's also Mr. Munch who hides on the camera and you have to find him to not die. I feel like he was the only serious issue I had with the game, since he gets introduced on night 3 and the phone call doesn't mention him by name and is fairly vague about his mechanics in my opinion. Finally, there's the stage call, which is used for several characters. All you have to do is push the button if a character enters your room and they leave. In the pre-night mini-games, you're tasked with locating a set of items on a shelf while an animatronic is hunting you. These mini-games are very simple, simple, but they might be one of my favorite parts of the game since it makes the nights easier and is very fun to play. I had a lot of fun with this game and I think you should definitely check it out if you haven't. I might possibly play more of this game after this video is done, but with all that said, it's time to wrap up this video. In conclusion, I enjoyed this saga. I enjoyed playing the remake and getting to experience the original for the first time, which I knew very little about going in. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Not gonna force you, do what you want. Thanks for tuning in, and that's the video. Bye.